Hey, Mudflap's back with another video. This time, I'm going to talk about some tips, strategies that can help guilds improve their kill times and just improve their raid in a variety of manners that may interest them. Every phase, there are amazing guides on how to get the first kill of each boss, the strategies on your initial progression kill, but there aren't many that help you improve later after that. How to continue to improve, what new strats have been developed, how can you improve as a group more than this. So for many guilds, when a phase moves on, after progression, that's what's left to do, improving as a unit. It's fun. So I put together a video, some of our kills, and I'm going to discuss some of the tips and strategies and changes we've made so far this phase that helped us improve and really made it more enjoyable. So the first big disclaimer is, in case anyone thinks this is a crazy min-max extreme strat thing, it is not. It will vary the spectrum from an average guild to very good guild, all sorts of things, and everything in between. You don't need to be hardcore in any capacity to do what I'm going to discuss in this video. We brought multiple alts, many people were off spec, people did not have good gear, classes that some people aren't bringing, we brought, and we made lots of mistakes that we can improve on, and we still set world records on some fights. So the key takeaway is strategies and effort will take you a long way. And if there's anything in the video that can help or that's interesting, take advantage of it. Now, the first and biggest thing that can improve kill times and improve your raid is when and where you can have people that are tanks or healers DPS. I'm going to say it many times throughout the video. Can you drop a tank? Can you drop a healer here or there? Some people are bringing anywhere between 1 and 6 healers to certain fights, and sometimes in between 1 and 3 tanks to certain fights. The ability with dual spec to be able to change per fight and do what your guild is comfortable doing and keep improving is so beneficial. Take advantage of it. The one thing that really stinks for a lot of people is over the years, if a healer wants to be a healer and they don't want to DPS, in my experience, they would much rather DPS than sit there with too many healers, because then there's nothing to do and they're just so bored. And at the end of the day, we want to have fun. Everyone wants to have fun together. And so it's an easy way for a win-win. The raid could do more damage, and some of the healers that stay healing get to do something, and the healers that want to pump, if they would like to, can pump here and there, and you can change it based on each boss. So that being said, let's jump into the video. The first fight I'm going to start with is Anub. And for us, we do 1 tank, 2 healers, but 3, 4, 5, whatever you need, 2 tanks, anything can work. The biggest thing that you can do is when you are engaging, you want to have your raid spread out. We actually kind of didn't do a very good job of that. However, a noob is bugged, and his spike will hit the main tank 90% of the time. So we did have a bunch of people get spiked there. They did not spread as they were told. So they got spiked, and we can improve on that easily. And then for the rest of the fight, no one gets it, and it only hits the tank. I don't know if that bug is happening to your guilds, but the biggest thing you can do is comfortably drop healers to where your guild feels safe, and then try to beat the Locust Swarm timer, and you will really, really, really make this fight really easy for you guys. And then if the spike isn't bugged for you, spread out, and less people will be tossed up. Easy enough. In Faerlina, again, safely drop as many healers as your guild feels comfortable with. The fire does almost nothing. There's very little to heal if the cleanses are being done. And this is where hybrids can be really helpful. If your shamans have the totem for the cleanse, takes so much stress off of the healers. And then they can just heal the minimal damage that exists in this fight. If you have a lot of DPS, you don't even need to mind control. You can rotate cooldowns in your tank and just burn her. But if you need to have an extra tank, hold them off to the side, hold only as many as you need for your guild's damage, and then you could kill off the rest. And that's how you would slowly improve your time in this fight. In Maexxna, I have a flare off to the left wall. That is one of the spots where web wraps happen. The other one happens directly behind where my character ends up against this back wall. Those are the two spots where web wraps happen. So you should tank the boss off to the left-hand side of the room in between the two spots where web wraps happen, so that when DPS have to swap to help break people out, they don't have to run across the room to try to break them out. That's not fun for anyone running around all crazy, and it's less time that the people who get broken out have to run back to the boss as well. So positioning is super helpful for this. Obviously, it's a one tank fight. There's nothing for an off tank to do in this fight, and just rotating cooldowns for the web wraps, or sprays, that is, and simple enough fight, right? But yeah, positioning is going to help a ton in improving this fight. For Noth, again, with positioning, we bring Noth a little bit over towards where the ads are going to spawn, so less time of them running around. They don't really do a lot. There isn't really a use for a second tank on these. They don't hit for very much. They don't really do anything. So having one tank and utilizing tricks and misdirects to your main tank and just passively cleaving them down is going to do everything you need to do for this fight. And whatever you can do when you can safely drop heals or tanks and try to beat that teleport timer, that's really going to be a big achievement for the speed of your kill. If you can beat the teleport timer, you guys are crushing it. Now, on Heigan, there are multiple strats for this. There is one where you can have everyone on the platform. We haven't done that, but that is a viable strat if you've seen that. But for us, what we did is we kind of wanted to do something that just gave everyone a chance to have fun. And we stood in the eruption so that healers have something to heal. Because if the dispels are quick, there really isn't a lot of damage. And even dropping healers, the healers were still bored in our guild. So we were trying to give them something to do. And it's really nice for the ranged, because when you're doing the dance, bosses are really, really finicky in their positioning. And so you're trying to be not too far away, not too close so they don't get the debuff where they can't cast. And sometimes, even if your tank is moving appropriately, the boss is going to move wildly and erratically, and then it's going to mess them up. And if you can sit them in one spot, the ranged are going to be able to be where they need to be and not worry about the boss randomly moving closer to them, giving them that terrible debuff, and they can just freely do what they want to do, right? Everyone can have fun. And then the healers, we give them a little something to heal so they can enjoy themselves too. Now on Loatheb, we had a mistake here. A lot of the people bootsed in. Save your movement speeds for spores. You want to set up spore groups, obviously, and you can min-max that however much you want. But one of the biggest things is movement. So if you want to improve the speed of the kill and improve as a raid, lowering the amount of movement is the key to this one. And also, don't lust off the bat. Remember that the raid is trying to get this debuff that's going to make them get a massive amounts of crit. Wait till everyone has that buff. Don't just out of habit lust off the bat. You'll get a lot more benefit out of it, and being efficient is one of the best ways to improve your rate. And again, dropping healers where you don't need them, adding more damage, that's going to improve so much. There's not a lot of damage in this fight, as you guys have seen. So dropping healers, dropping tanks when necessary, and minimizing the amount of running you have to do, as well as properly using Lust. So I believe we use it here like 45-ish%. We have a Chain Lightning hit a Spore and no one gets that one. Super bad, super unlucky, right? We can move the boss closer to the center and try to avoid that. The Spores can be super finicky in this. There is a lot of RNG to Spores spawning and unlucky things happening, like Starfall. Starfall hitting a Spore off to the side or something and dying before anyone gets it. You can get really griefed on this fight, unfortunately. But, you know, just do what you can to roll with the punches. One other minor thing you could do, if, as you see, our tank has such a massive threat lead, you can, if you feel comfortable near the end of the fight, the tank can even get a Spore and start doing way more damage. I mean, why not, right? If they have that much of a threat lead, they can do more damage. You're not going to hurt anything, unless someone's riding their tail. Now on Razuvious, this is another one where we have the tank take the adds off to the side. We have one tank. He builds a threat lead, brings them back into the AoE in case we need to keep one. So eventually, lots of people are probably not going to need the extra understudies, and you can kill Razuvious within one mind control. But you slowly work towards that. So bring them off to the side to keep them alive for how much extra health of an understudy you need, how many, you get a feel for how many mind controls you need before you have the damage to burn the boss, and then go from there. Also, a nice tip is your mages can amp magic the understudies. They will get extra healing. It give them a little bit extra life, so something to consider. And yeah, the priests being vocal with each other is key. If you have other people saying things in Discord, they can miss taunts, miss whatever things they need to communicate. So biggest thing I would say is make sure that your priests get front and center stage to communicate with each other, since they're the ones doing the tanking. For full Horsemen, we have a lot of fun with this. We have kind of a wild, wild west strat. It is not something you should do if you want to go for Immortal. We have the entire raid stack on Zeliek and burn him before the bolt goes out. And it's super exhilarating because it could happen during that, and then chaos, right? You could lose half your raid. It's not the safest strat. It's simply something we thought was fun, and it's fun to pump and do something that you're kind of riding the edge of the limits of what you can do in a raid. And so if you want to do it safer, start on Blamo with the stack and only let ranged and maybe a couple melee go to Zeliek, and you could do the swap and still burn on the left-hand side first. This fight is not nearly as dangerous as it was in vanilla. When they die, they stop doing the stacks, and they just stop being a threat once they die. So you might think you're close to dying because you have all these stacks. Well, they're dead. Their dead bodies are not giving you stacks anymore. So much simpler fight. Yeah, absolutely. Really fun strat to do it this way. For Patchwerk, this is the one where you really have to get a feel for how many tanks and healers do you want to do. Do you want to do 2 or 3 tanks? You have to have 2 tanks for this. Do you want to 2, 3, 4, 5 plus heal? Get a feel for the right number of tanks and healers to where you're keeping the hateful tank or tanks alive and not having any silly deaths. We have a couple of mistakes here. The best bet for a hateful off tank is a Feral Druid. This is where they shine. So I would suggest if you have a Feral that has some tank gear, if they can be the off tank, you can probably pretty easily to tank this, no matter the healing number, because their HP pool is just so massive. And that's the main aspect of Hatefuls, is just having that HP above the melee, right? And so, yeah, if you have a Feral, I say try and see how that works. If you want to drop two tanks, one Hateful tank, and then see how many healers you feel safe doing that with. And you can get the achievement for killing him under 3 minutes, unless you already have it, even with the extra heals and tanks. I mean, people are pumping out of their mind, doing so much damage. So just depends on where your guild feels like they want to improve. And then, of course, at the very end, he'll do his Enrage at the last moment. The tanks can roll the last cooldowns there. For Grobbulus, the main things to consider with this are movement speed things, kind of like the spores on Loatheb. We had a few people, if they don't have 2 movement speed things, they shouldn't use their boots there. If you have multiple, you can chance it, but you should keep some sort of movement speed thing if you have it, for if you get the injection, right? The less downtime you have, that's the better damage for your kill. The more you'll improve is based on how little downtime you have running out, running back in, and whoever your dispeller is being perfectly in sync with the people getting in and out. If you want them to call out anything, that's always a viable strategy. And then the biggest thing to avoid the excess damage is making sure people get far enough away, because the explosion after they get dispelled is actually pretty big in radius, and you can get a lot of silly like extra damage on people, and possibly even deaths for no reason if they don't get just far enough out. But there's not a lot of special things you can do here other than dropping a healer or 2. And then for Gluth, the biggest thing is positioning. And again, where can you drop heals and tanks to really push? If you need the tank in the off tank in the back kiting with slows and stuff, that's sometimes an option. If you can drop that and have maybe your holy paladins in the back with Righteous Fury, they can endlessly tank these ads, stun them with Holy Wrath and all these things. They're actually, paladins are quite tanky, and you don't actually need a tank. I would suggest trying it if you guys are down to try new strats. Having the Holy Pallies in the back, tanking the ads, healing the tank and themselves with beacons, and then you can have everyone else just fully pumping. You don't need people back there slowing or kiting or anything. The ads are just going to go straight to them, and when it gets down to the wire, you can start rotating cooldowns on them and the tanks if it's tight. Now for Thaddius, this is one where you might consider dropping a tank and having maybe a DK go Frost Presence, or we have a Feral going Bear. And these guys, they hit moderately hard, but not so hard that you can't have a DPS that has a way to tank. And then you don't have a tank during Thaddius sitting there auto-attacking because they can't do anything because they're in tank spec. And he can be a really long fight, especially if you're under geared or if you have too many tanks and healers. You're gonna feel it, and it's gonna be a really long fight when it doesn't need to be. And then that's more room for error, more room for someone to either mess up the achievements that you're going for, or just trying to improve your kill time as a group. Now, the middle area near the green goo, they messed up. You should be choosing a side of Thaddius, left or right, no matter if you're right or wrong. If you're right, you don't have to move, you get to keep going. If you're wrong, you have to move anyways. So you would have moved the same distance had you guessed wrong, but at least you have a chance to guess right and not have to move. So no one should ever stand where they were. They were not listening. And so so we make plenty of mistakes. We're all like human. So the other thing to consider is you see the charge that I have, the negative charge, and then I have 12 stacks of damage buff. When this swaps, like, I lose the damage buff, and then I gain it back. Really important for all the classes when they get into the fight that you wait. Just because you have a charge doesn't mean you throw whatever dot or bleed or whatever thing that you have that's either going to roll or be snapshotted. Any big damage, cooldowns, anything, wait until you get the 12 or 11 charges, not just the initial charge, that give you the damage buff before you do that. That is going to actually increase your damage and the raid's damage massively. Again, also, don't lust off the bat. Wait till everyone has the damage buffs before you give big cooldowns. It's going to improve things massively. If you ever wondered, why am I doing so little damage on Thaddius compared to these other guilds? You go look at logs or things, it doesn't make sense. Well, there are all these little ways you could be more efficient and do way more damage as a group. And everything you do personally that you do better, that is going to have a cascading effect. Each person does their own bit. Everyone as a unit is going to, it's just massive improvement overall that you're going to feel. Yeah. So just pay attention to those little nuances in the fights that change how much damage you do, what ways you can better it. And then for Sapphiron, if you need the achievement, you're going to need to run extra healers. That Frost Aura does so much work. You're not even realizing how much each person resisting like 400 damage per person per 2 seconds is just a massive amount of damage you're mitigating. If you don't need the achievement and you have the aura, you can absolutely drop healers. People are just standing in mechanics, they just don't do that much damage if you have the aura. And you still need to have quick dispels, right, or decurses. But this is a fight where you can definitely, obviously it's a one tank fight, you shouldn't have a second tank just sitting there auto attacking. They're not really contributing. So off specs with dual spec is super important. And then you can easily drop a healer. You can see how many you'd be able to drop for how much you can improve as a group. And then I play it really safe. I get out early. You can stay in much longer and be safe on these. But one of the big things is these ice blocks have a bug from vanilla where if you don't press escape when you are attacking and you are able to still auto attack Sapphiron, it will count as if you are not behind anything and you will be one shot. If you've ever wondered why someone was clearly, you were behind the ice block and you still got one shot, it doesn't make any sense. If you don't cancel your auto attack, if you don't cancel whatever attacks you can still have focused on the boss, it will count as if you're not behind anything and you will die. And that's really a sad way to go if you're really close to an immortal run and you did get behind the ice block, but that happened. Like, just heads up, don't let that happen to you. It's just terrible. And then for KT, skip all the trash, 4 minutes of just playing beach ball with the DKs, with the A-bombs, death gripping them throughout the air. Then we get to KT. So for KT, try to have 2 groups for melee and no one ever in between the groups to chain ice blocks, you can get really trolled. There, it's really hard to keep 20 people alive if they all get ice blocked, so make sure that they're spread appropriately. And this is another one where you could choose to lust off the bat, or you could wait till the ads come out at 40-ish%, right? And you can have 2 tanks, or if you're trying to push, you could 1 tank, utilize those misdirects and tricks and all those other things, get the ads to the tank, and they can help themselves as well. And then you could lust at 40-ish% and go crazy, burn 1 tank, everything, and it's completely doable, completely viable if you're able to push like that. It just depends. Get a feel for how much damage your raid is doing. The less damage you're doing, the harder that becomes, right? And you can't have silly deaths. There's a lot of RNG that can happen in this fight, but you want to make sure, especially once these ads are there, that people are interrupting those frostbolts. Like, you can get away with being lazy early on, but if you're 1 tanking, you're gonna want people interrupting those frostbolts when the tank is tanking Kel'Thuzad and all those ads by himself. So as you can see, we're getting all these, and then we just burn. And sometimes you get a little lucky. I don't think our melee group ever got ice blocked, which helps the burn a lot, obviously. And no silly deaths makes things really easy. And so, and we get our crazy loot, by the way, off of him. But those are some good tips, tricks, strat changes that we did. Most of these are probably, for many people, they might be self-explanatory, but you might have had trouble convincing other people in the guild, hey, let's try and do this one thing. Well, maybe show them how successful it can be. One of the things to consider is if you're getting pushback from people that just want to just exist in the raid, I would say think about a common philosophy that your raid might have, your guild might have. You want to have a common goal for achieving something, some sort of reason to be in the raid beyond just getting loot, right? And having a common goal to improve each week is the #1 way that people stay engaged in the game, right? And so if people can put forth the effort and try to push the envelope a little bit without going overboard, that's going to keep people engaged, having fun, and it's something to do. Beyond, once you've killed everything, you want to have something to do rather than just like obsess about loot, and you don't want to just exist in the raid, right? You don't want to be aimlessly there. So find that common goal, think about that, and try to push the things that you guys can achieve together. It's a lot of fun, I promise. And with that, like and subscribe, and I shall see you on the next video.